The House will please come to order. I would like to welcome everyone to the fifth day of the session, February 16th, 2024. Chief Clerk, please call the roll, and it looks like we've got some committees out, so we'll do, when we do our little handshakes, hopefully they'll be back in. So Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Convening roll call for the fifth day, February 16th, 2024. Alamand. Allred. Andrew. Angelos, excused. Banks. Bear.
Excused.
Berger. Brown. Excused. Burkhart. Byron.
Excused.
Chadwick.
Excused.
Chestick. Clouston.
Excused.
Conrad. Crago. Davis. Eklund. Haroldson. Harshman.
Excused.
Heiner. Henderson. Hornock. Jennings. Knapp. Larson Lloyd.
Excused, even though I just saw him.
Larson JT. Lawley.
Excused.
Locke.
Excused.
Nyman. Newsom. Nicholas. Nemec. Northrup.
Excused.
Oakley.
Excused.
Obermuller. O'Hearn.
Excused.
Olson. Ottman. Pendergraft. Penn. Provenza. Rodriguez Williams. Sherwood. Singh. Slagle. Smith. Stith. Storer.
Excused.
Strock.
Excused.
Stivar. Tarver. Trujillo.
Excused.
Walters. Ward. Washut. Western. Winter. Wiley. Yin. Zwaniter Dan. Zwaniter Dave. Speaker Summers.
Here.
Clouston. Chadwick. Brown. O'Hearn.
Chief, if you would keep that open. Here comes one more. Maybe we
Trujillo.
can catch. All right, let's just keep that open. And so we'll do the prayer of the day, and that is by Reverend Mary Cockett from Christ Episcopal Church in Cody. Please rise.
Thank you all for hosting me this week. And my prayers in the mornings have focused on the ways that we are all broken and in need of healing and being brought home. And that's only really half of the prayer that we do. The other half is the prayer of gratitude and the prayer of thanksgiving. And so I invite you to stand on your feet, feel the good earth under you, bow your head, and give thanks. We think of all of the ways that we are grateful for our colleagues, grateful we have the breath of life, Grateful that we have a warm place to sleep and food for our bellies. Grateful for your presence with us in all that we do. Grateful for our families. Grateful for the ability to love. Every morning we wake up in gratitude to you. Regardless of how tumultuous our times are, there is always room for gratitude. I offer 2 prayers this morning from people in the past who lived through perhaps more tumultuous times than we do even here and now. The first is a Bishop of Lincoln who was part of the English Civil War in the 17th century and the only Puritan to accept a bishopric in the Church of England upon the Restoration. And the other is attributed to John Chrysostom of the 4th century, who was at one point the Patriarch of Constantinople, but he had a golden tongue, Chrysostom, and part of his golden tongue was to preach powerfully against the rich and powerful when they were being unjust. And so he was unseated and sent into exile. And yet through all that, these 2 men gave thanks. Almighty God, Father of all mercies, we, your unworthy servants, give you humble thanks for all your goodness and loving kindness to us and to all whom you have made. We bless you for our creation, preservation, and all the blessings of this life, but above all for your immeasurable love in the redemption of the world by our Lord Jesus Christ, for the means of grace and for the hope of glory. And we pray, give us such an awareness of your mercies that with truly thankful hearts, we may show forth your praise, not only with our lips, but in our lives, by giving up ourselves to your service and by walking before you in holiness and righteousness all our days, through Jesus Christ our Lord, to whom with you and the Holy Spirit be honor and glory throughout all ages. Amen.
Amen.
And from St. John Chrysostom, Almighty God, you have given us grace at this time with one accord to make our common supplication unto you. And you have promised through your well-beloved Son that whenever 2 or 3 gather together in his name, you will be in the midst of them. Fulfill now, O Lord, our desires and petitions as may be best for us, granting us in this world knowledge of your truth, and in the age to come, life everlasting. Amen.
Amen.
And thank you for a wonderful week. Thank you.
Let's give her a hand. So, Mary, it's been a real pleasure seeing you again and having you here. So thank you. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we're gonna delay play ball because we've got some really important people here, and so we're gonna finish the roll call, and then we're gonna go into a floor ceremony, and that's probably gonna be our play ball today. So Chief Clerk, please finish the roll.
Bear? Here. Byron? Here. Harshman?
Excused.
Lawley?
Excused.
Locke?
Present.
Northrup? Here. Oakley?
Excused.
Storer?
Excused.
Strock?
Is that it? I think we'll close it, and they can, the next time they vote, they're gonna have to be here or not.
57
So,
present, 5 excused.
Thank you, Chief. Fellow representatives, we are honored to have Wyoming's Adjutant General, Major General Greg Porter, with us today to recognize Master Sergeant Brian Nafziger and Sergeant Tyler Halloway. Sergeant Nafziger is with the Wyoming Air National Guard 253rd Security Forces Squadron and was awarded Best Sniper. He was part of the team who won the Best Security Forces Marksman Trophy during the Global Strike Challenge, the world's premier security forces competition. Sergeant Halloway is with the 115th Field Artillery Brigade and was awarded the Non-Commissioned Officer of the Year in the Army National Guard. Please join me in recognizing the incredible service of these individuals. Major General Porter, I invite you to say a few remarks. Wow.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Very much appreciate the privilege of the floor today. And thank you to all of you. I know you're incredibly busy and have a short time to do it, so I will try to do the same. Just want to give you a quick update on what's going on in your Cowboy Guard and introduce you to a couple of really fantastic warriors. I'm not sure it was as clear about what Sergeant Holloway did. Not only was he Wyoming's NCO of the Year, he was the nation's NCO over the Year across that. Because of his leadership, Sergeant Holloway achieved that distinction 2 years ago, but this last year, because of his leadership, Specialist Harrison, also a Wyoming National Guardsman, was the nation's enlisted Soldier of the Year. Nice job, Sergeant Holloway. Thank you all again. I just wanted to give you a quick update on the Cowboy Guard. You know, the nation still needs us and continues to demand our service. Currently, right now, we have about 140 airmen in Africa Command, specifically the country of Djibouti. As you may have seen recently, it's getting pretty tense over there. But we got a chance to visit that group first weekend of January, and they're doing an outstanding job in theater. We've got 140 of our airmen, I said, and 4 of our C-130s over there. We'll get them back from that mission into this month, early part of next month. But from there, we'll turn around again and we'll send another 80 airmen out. Those airmen are going to go basically all over the world. They're going to serve in virtually every geographic combatant command, from European Command to Africa Command to Northern Command to Indo-PACOM to EUCOM. They'll serve in all those places. Again, doing a great job for us. As soon as we get them back, we'll start deploying the Army Guard. So this summer, into July, first part of August, we'll send the 2nd 300th Field Artillery Battalion, who's our HIMARS, or rocket battalion. They'll go with their forward support company. About 6 months after that, the 115th Field Artillery Brigade will deploy, and they'll take their target acquisition platoon and most of the members of their signal company with them. By this time next year, we'll have about 1/3, just short of 1/3 of the Army National Guard force structure deployed to Central Command doing the bidding of the nation. We are the sword and shield, and we must be ready, and we must be able to win. I will tell you, I see no scenario where the United States fights another nation state where our homeland is not held at risk. And that's not something we've thought about in a long time, since World War II, about what attacks on our homeland would look for us. But I tell you, we're thinking about that now. Fortunate for us, we have some outstanding individuals that raised their right hand and elected to serve in our formations and continue to perform their oath of defending the Constitution in the United States. I'm privileged today to introduce to you to Master Sergeant Nafziger, and right after him, Sergeant Holloway, just to give you some insight on the quality of people that we have serving with us in our Guard. Sergeant Nafziger, please come forward.
Good morning. How's everyone doing this morning? Awesome. Glad to hear it. Yeah, as I said, I am Master Sergeant Brian Nafziger. Everyone refers to me as NAF. Wanted to let you know why I'm here today. I'm here today because I am the third generation Nafziger to be in a war. My grandfather served in W2. He was part of the Rangers. He served in Italy and Germany. My father was in Vietnam in the Navy. And then when 9/11 happened, it solidified my decision I was going to be in the military. That is truly the reason why I'm here. I got stationed here in 2008, coming from England and overseas, where I got to go to Iraq. I had three options. I could be in Washington, D.C., Minot, North Dakota, or here. I grew up watching hunting shows of Wyoming, so it was a pretty simple decision to come out here. Although I did not know that it was in the prairie and it's as windy as it is. In 2023, as I stated, we got to do the Global Strike Challenge. Originally, I was just going to be a coach this year. I had done it, competed in it previous years, and it was time to let the younger airmen have their chance. Due to an unfortunate circumstance, one of our people had to drop out. They couldn't be the sniper, so I made the team by default. That's a pretty challenging position if you call yourself a leader. Now you have to work harder because you didn't do the tryouts that your men and women just went through. So every workout that I did, every training opportunity I had, I knew I had to put in that extra bit of effort to ensure that I gained the respect and earned the respect of my men and women. As I said, I was awarded the Top Sniper Award. To me, this means nothing. What means something to me is, if you know anything about a sniper, it is a team aspect. So the one that didn't get recognized is my spotter, Master Sergeant Daniel Hadley. Had it not been for him and understanding within a YouTube video and a 15-minute crash course of what I needed from him with communication and mathematics, we wouldn't have been able to do what we did. So I was very, very happy that he was intelligent and could pick up what was being put down. What's truly exciting about this competition is seeing our airmen go from young airmen, young adults, into warriors. Their mindset shifts, their focus is honed. That is where it's rewarding as an NCO. That is our excitement. We truly could not have done this had it not been for our counterparts in the Army. The Wyoming Marksmanship Team is truly amazing. We got to compete in 2019, and if it hadn't been for Master Sergeant Edwards and Master Sergeant Morgan taking us under their wing as, in essence, their little brothers and teaching us what they knew, we wouldn't have won the team award. So it's truly thanks to them, and they are not here today, but truly thanks to them. Their acceptance is what I believe to embody this great state. Since I've been here, what I've noticed through the Guard and through the civilians is everybody is accepting and accommodating. As long as you're putting forth the effort, they're going to give you all they have. And that's what I noticed from the Army. My entire career, I've got to play with the Army, either overseas or in training. And generally, it's the Air Force trying to say why we deserve to be in their presence. And then once we gain their respect, then everything is fine. But those two was just like how the people are in the state, immediately accepting and helping us out. And that's another reason why I love this state, is the history and the acceptance that is in this state. When I've heard about the different fourth and fifth and sixth generation ranchers and their brands and what the brand actually means and how it bolsters loyalty and honor and duty, it's the exact same thing that we have in the Guard. So I've been a defender my entire career, and I will ride for the brand and I will defend the brand. Thank you.
Well, I just have to put one thing out there. I am much better at digging foxholes than I am public speaking. So we'll give this a shot. The reason I'm here today and the reason I was able to achieve NCO of the Year was due to 3 NCOs in my life that have been extremely influential in my career. Master Sergeant Edwards, Sergeant First Class Postma, and Master Sergeant Upton. These NCOs embodied what it means to be a servant leader. They allowed me the chances to fail, to grow. These NCOs shaped, molded, and honed my skills, and I wouldn't be here today in front of you if it was not for them. But As they hone me as a soldier, as a National Guard soldier, we've got dual roles. We wear two hats. We are citizen soldiers. While I was deployed in 2019 in Iraq, my citizen side was allowed to shine while we were overseas in theater. While we were stationed there, a guard post had collapsed, and it was critical to base defense. So the Quick Reaction Force had to use one of their heavily armored vehicles to man that post, which put the base at yet another disadvantage. Losing a key asset in a Quick Reaction Force is absolutely critical to mission success. It would have taken 3 weeks for the engineers to get flown into Iraq to rebuild this guard post. I looked down at the ground. I've done hard work. I've built houses. I've done things outside of the guard. I looked at the first sergeant and I said, I can build that guard tower and I can get it done today. And so that's what I did. I took the lumber, I tinned the roof, and I ensured that 3 stacks of sandbags weighing over 1 ton could be supported under that guard shack, ensuring that the men and women in there were protected. This just goes to show that National Guardsmen aren't just soldiers. We bring so much more to the fight. We have roles outside of the guard, and we bring that experience and expertise with us, which makes us much better as a force. I'll leave you with one thing. As the world is changing and threats are ever present, the Wyoming Guard will continue to produce elite soldiers, whether it's the air or army, to defend the state and the nation. Ride for the brand.
That'll get you motivated, won't it? My goodness. Listen, I do want to thank each and every one of you. There's not a single one of you that I don't greet, that you don't pass on your support to our soldiers and airmen, and I can't tell you how much that means to us, and thank you for all that you do. I did want to acknowledge the leadership of our chairman, Landon Brown, who serves as our chair for the Military Affairs Committee. Sir, thank you for your leadership and keeping us focused. Very much appreciated. Mr. Speaker, thank you again for the opportunity to be here. Absolutely a privilege. Thank you to all the work that you do for the vast amounts of pay that you receive to do it.
General Porter, before you leave,
Yes,
you've
sir.
got some folks, you have some folks up there. Would you just recognize them and who they are?
All right. This are folks up here. This is most of our senior staff and quite a few of our folks that just came down here to show some support today. So, hey, folks, just give them a wave up there if you would.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We'll get out of your hair.
Well, I want you folks to go down this way, and I want to shake these gentlemen's hand in your hand before we leave. Wow, that was awesome. General Porter, Sergeant Nafziger, and Sergeant Holloway, thank you for joining us and allowing us to honor you. Thank you for your service to Wyoming and the nation. I have a floor announcement. The form to submit interim topics went live this morning on the legislature's website. There's a memo in each of your mailboxes outlining the process. Suggested topics may originate from any source, but the topic must be submitted and presented to joint committees by a legislator. The deadline for submissions is Friday, March 1st at 4 p.m. Friday, March 1st at 4 p.m. In addition, tentative meeting dates selected by chairman for interim meetings have been posted to the website. Additional dates will be posted as committee chairmen select meeting dates. Let's do the Journal Committee report.
Your Journal Committee reports that the Journal of February 15th, 2024 has been read and recommends that it be approved. Representatives Ward and Chestick.
Thank you. Our nurse of the day is Barbara Clegg and Kim Morse. So thanks to those. Just give them a hand whether they're here or not. Messages from the Senate.
Message 100. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. Senate File 12, meat processing plants, hides, and carcasses. Ayes 17, noes 14. Message 101. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. Senate File 20, electricity rates for costs that do not benefit Wyoming. Ayes 30. Message 102. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading in an amended form by the vote indicated. Senate File 14, State Fair Board Powers and Responsibilities. Ayes 18, noes 13. Message 103. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. Senate File 47, Law Enforcement Retirement Contributions. Ayes 22, noes 9. Message 104. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. Senate File 48, Patrol, Warden, and Investigator Retirement Contributions. Ayes 24, noes 7. Message 105. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading in an amended form by the vote indicated. Senate File 49, Judicial Retirement Program Contributions. Ayes 16, noes 15. Message 106. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. Senate File 58, Investment of State Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund. Ayes 31. Message 107. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading in an amended form by the vote indicated. Senate File 59, Federal Unemployment Compensation Trust Fund Adjustment. Ayes 29, noes 2. Message 108. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. Senate File 67, Public Employee Retirement Plan Contributions. Ayes 16, noes 14.
All right.
Sincerely, Ellen Thompson, Senate Chief Clerk.
Thank you. Just kind of a notice to all of you, the intro list is evolving, so if you have to look, don't just judge the yellow sheet. Go online and look, because I've had people want to pull bills off, people want to put bills in, and bills that are now rose that may not have rose before. So please continue to look at that list to ensure you're ready for your bill when it comes up, if and when we get to that time. The next order of business, Mr. Majority Floor, let's make that motion and do our deal.
Mr. Speaker, I move the House resolve itself into committee of the whole to consider the budget bill, House Bill 1.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Chairman Zwanitzer Dan, or whoever's the chairman this go around? I don't know the answer to that. I think it is Chairman Zwanitzer Dan. Hey!
Thank you. All right, let me start off by thanking whoever for the distinct honor of being cow chairman for 2 days in a row. It's not happened before in my 19 years. We are at that point of the budget this morning on section 25, I believe. We closed section 24, State Parks and Cultural Resources. We're going to jump to section 27, the State Construction Department. And as soon as our Appropriations Committee members get situated, we'll commence. I believe Representative Walters is up first. With that, section 27, Representative Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Thank you for the patience while we get set and ready to go for another day of presenting the the budget here in our 2024 budget session. Again, Mr. Chairman, before us right now is section 27, State Construction Department. And members, if you'll refer to page 15 on your summary sheet and page 27 on your bill. And so members, the Joint Appropriations Committee adopted the Chief Executive's recommendation of 14,000 school foundation program funds one time for TRP replacement. And so this is the school side of the house that covers the TRP replacement, because there's school construction and state construction within this 027. Second, the JAC adopted the Chief Executive's recommendation for $10,000 for an e-signature software program. This was a pilot a couple of years ago, and now it's being implemented full-time. It saves weeks and weeks on the contracting, and so very efficient. And then the Joint Appropriations Committee adopted the Chief Executive's recommendation of $22,630 for school foundation program funds, again, for the AIM database system maintenance. And you can see that in summary note number 3. Joint Appropriations Committee adopted the Chief Executive's recommendation for 3 AWAC positions. And these positions will just kind of sit in the ready, and they'll be paid for through the budgets of various large projects as those projects come forward. And you'll see that in summary note 4. And so think of these folks as an owner's rep on these large projects. And so this way, the position is the AWAC position is available if needed, but it's only funded with the project dollars themselves if and when they're needed. And the Joint Appropriations Committee adopted the Chief Executive's recommendation of $11,400 in general funds for professional development, license dues, and registration, summary note number 5. And what this is this agency has really developed. Many of their employees are now PEs, professional engineers, things like that. And just as these folks would have their license and dues paid in the private sector for the work they do, we're paying for those through this entity, just so that makes it on par with what the private sector would be doing and makes it easier to recruit these folks, because we want the best and brightest. And then I would just note that summary notes 6 through the rest of the page will actually be discussed in section 313. And so at this point, I would stop my explanation of Agency 27 and take questions, knowing that all of the school construction stuff will come up later in the day in section 313. So with that, Mr. Chairman, are there any questions on Agency 027, State Construction Department?
Discussion on section 27. Seeing none, we will close section 27 and move on to section 29, the Wyoming Water Development Office. Representative Zwanitzer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, for an explanation of section 29, the Wyoming Water Development Office, please look on pages 27, 28 of your budget bill, or page 15 on your summary or status sheet. It's a big budget there. So on this one, JAC made no modifications to the governor's recommendation. The exception request that we limited to was the technology request. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Discussion on section 29. Seeing none, we will close section 29, Wyoming Water Development Office, and move all the way to section 37, State Engineer. And we'll await Representative Zwanitzer Dave to return. Representative Zwanitzer Dave, we are now on State Engineer, Section 37. You'll notice in your summary sheet, committee, we did skip over 7 different numbered agencies that don't have requests, and so we will do all of those at the end of the entire first reading of the bill in one block. So with that, jumping to Agency 37, State Engineer, Representative Zwanitzer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For Section 37, go to pages 28 and 29 on your budget bill and page 16 on your status sheet. So as you read through the status sheet, the first few notes, number 1, 2, 3, 11, and 12, we're basically taking the funding source from general funds and making it the Water One account. And what JAC did was also to transfer the $16,911,633 general funds to S1, and we do that back in section 300 little j. The next interesting note would be note number 8. JC added footnote number 1 for $432,000 of general funds for maintenance agreement, and we made that ongoing. Also, if you look down at note 13, JAC adopted the governor's rec of reducing $17,820 of special revenue for basin electric stream gauge monitoring, which will now allow them to take the administration division and pay them directly. And also there's a technical correction of $41 of special revenue. And Mr. Chairman, I stand for any questions you may have.
Is there any discussion on Section 37, State Engineer? Seeing none again, we'll close Section 37, State Engineer, and move open Section 39, the Wildlife and Natural Resource Trust Fund. Representative Sherwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move Section 309 for the Wildlife Natural Resources Trust. This is found on page 17 of your summary sheet and page 29 of your budget bill. Interest earned on this agency's trust account provides funding and design assistance for natural resources and wildlife enhancement projects in all of our communities. We adopted the chief executive's recommendation for all of the agency's exception requests. So notes number 1 and 7 allow the agency to fill its duties as an escrow agent for these oil and gas funds and Rocky Mountain Power project funds. Note number 2 is for administration and personnel. This is a small amount of funds from the agency's own account. The grants manager, a longtime employee of the agency, retired, and in order to, during the recruitment process, it was necessary to bring the amount of the salary up to hire a competent replacement. Notes number 3 and 5 relate to technology replacement and website support. Note number 4 is project funding. This is $4.6 million of that interest earned off the trust account of budget authority to increase expenditures based on actual spending. Footnote number 1, so this is on page 29 of your budget bill, and this is note number 6 on your summary sheet, reflects our partial adoption of Governor's Letter number 7. $20 million was requested to prevent the introduction and spread of invasive plants and grasses, think about cheatgrass, on private and state lands. JAC approved $5 million, and this is conditioned on a 3-to-1 match for a total of $15 million in non-state funds across all projects. You'll later see this mentioned in section 322 of the budget bill. Footnote number 2 and note number 8 on your summary sheet We moved 2 million from the trust income account into the corpus so that that money can work harder for the people of Wyoming. That gets the balance of the trust above the 200 million goal and threshold. With that, Mr. Chairman, I stand for questions.
Discussion on section 39. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one question on item number 6, moving the money to the Wildlife and Natural Resources. Why was that money not placed in with the weed and pest for those folks to distribute that money on the invasive species?
Vice Chairman Larson.
That's likely where it will go, but this is what we done last year. You'll recall we had kind of a similar action last year and I think it was $1 million that we got out immediately to get that out. The wildlife, the WWNRT really had the expertise to get it out to all of those organizations, including Weed and Pest, to get that application on in a timely manner. Much of this will be distributed out through the Weed and Pest programs, as well as any maybe agreements we have with federal agencies and Forest Service and Department of Interior on any of the public lands as well. So it'll incorporate the use of Weed and Pest.
Representative Stivar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got questions on 7. The JC adopted the governor's rec for a Rocky Mountain Power Project and then reduced the number from the B11. Can that be explained?
Vice Chairman Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rocky Mountain Power, as part of their requirements in environmental mitigation on their power line, was required to participate in conservation and dedicate some funding to that. They have done that through the state, through the WWNRT, where the WWNRT takes those funds that Rocky Mountain Power has dedicated to that over the last couple of years. This will probably be the last biennium you see this account in there, but it was to help them comply with requirements as they build out some of their infrastructure. And does that make sense?
And committee, although it is a proper name because it is in your summary sheet, will allow its use. Any other discussion on section 39? Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One question for the committee. What I'm wondering is WWNRT is been giving a lot of these funds to distribute. Is there going to be like a management audit or somewhere? Is there a place where we can look, through the departments to see where these monies are coming and going, or do we need a report from WWNRT? Thank you.
Representative Sherwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for that question. All of that information can be found on their website, and when I sit down, I will send that out to the body. And there is a report that's provided to the entire legislature as well. Thank you.
Further discussion on section 39, Wyoming Wildlife Natural Resource Trust. Vice Chairman Larson.
I also think that it's important to note on that conversation with the WWNRT, where we've established a trust corpus, that then they take the revenue from that corpus to do these conservation projects. And every year we have a large project fund that comes before us that the legislature has to approve on how those funds are, if we allow them to use it for the purposes that are outlined. We also have a subcommittee that approves that too. And this is similar to other trust funds that we send out, where we take revenue from that. The revenue from that trust fund isn't automatically go to that purpose. The legislature still has to appropriate it for the use.
Representative Locke.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just real quick on that bullet 7 that you talked about, just clarification, is that an agreement we've had with that company that we're kind of fulfilling that moving forward? Is that what that is? That's kind of an ongoing thing. Thank you.
Vice Chairman Larson.
That's correct. And if you look in there, you'll see that we had another at one time with Encana Natural Resources, which was a natural gas development in the Jonah Field and in Fremont County a lot, and they had a similar requirement to obligation for conservation funds and to account for the impact that they were having in their development, same as Rocky Mountain Power, and this was a good way to get that done.
Further discussion on section 39? Seeing none, we'll close section 39 and move to section 41, fire prevention and electrical safety. Representative Sherwood will be presenting section 41, fire prevention and electrical safety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I present to you a very hot agency. I think that was Chairman Burkhart's comments when he represented this organization. Okay, I move Agency 41, found on page 17 of your summary sheet, and page 30 of your budget bill. This agency works to protect life and property from fires and electrical hazards. We adopted the recommendations regarding the agency's 3 exception requests. Note number 1 is for a statewide fire record management system. Note number 4 is to cover credit card processing fees. And then we made technical corrections to notes number 2 and 3. There was an amount used to calculate the reclassification cost for 2 positions that accidentally included benefits instead of just the salary adjustment. So this correction saved us $133,000 general fund dollars. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I will stand for corrections or questions.
Is there any discussion on section 41, fire prevention, electrical safety? Seeing none, we'll close section 41, fire prevention, electrical safety, and move on to section 42, the geological survey. Please welcome back Representative Sherwood.
Okay, good morning, and thank you all for your grace as my coffee sets in. Mr. Chairman, I present Agency 42. This is found on page 18 of your summary sheet and page 31 of your budget bill. This agency is dedicated to protecting our interests in all geological matters. This includes energy and mineral resources, geologic hazards, fossils, water, and geological tourism, which contributes to the diversification of our state revenue. Last biennium, this agency secured $1.7 million in competitive grants to fund advanced research in critical minerals, an emerging field. They had 7 exception requests, all of which were recommended by the chief executive and adopted by JAC. Notes number 1 and 2 are for technology replacement. Again, I'm grouping. Notes number 3 and 4, we restored 2 full-time generally funded positions. The geological data analysis will focus on subsurface resources, including oil and gas. This is the largest existing source of our economic revenue, and is evolving with the use of pore space. The minerals geologist position will focus on critical minerals. Both positions will fulfill Wyoming Statute 9-2-805. And just as a note, in 2013, there were 23 employees in this agency. In 2024, there were 19. With these 2 positions, they are still below where they were a decade ago. Note number 5 is $11,000 in general funds for professional development expenses. And then notes number 6 and 7 are for ETS services. Note number 8, this is for footnote number 1 in the budget bill. We added $2 million in matching funds for detailed airborne geophysical surveys to analyze mineral resources. This very detailed data will be reviewed for quality assurance by the USGS and made available to industry and the public through our agency's website. Mr. Chairman, this concludes Agency 42.
Any discussion on section 42, geological survey? Representative Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And that last bullet, that 2 million, is that something that we do every so often? Is that something we've done before? Is this new? I'm just kind of curious what that program is. That would seem like something that would be a periodic charge. Thank you.
Vice Chairman Larson.
It is not new. In the last biennial budget, we done a similar appropriation to, and that air survey, I think, was done over the kind of the Gas Hills South Pass area. And And what they try to do is leverage when the USGS is flying and doing surveys to leverage their funds with additional funds to get more of that done for mineral identification. We also done some down south, I believe, in Carbon County of that Sierra Madre. I was looking to the good chairman. He brought that footnote, I believe. So this isn't, but when that opportunity comes that we can leverage some state dollars to enhance some of those USGS dollars to get more of this mineral identification done, it's very helpful. And the enhancement that they get now is much more significant. I would just share with you, as a result of the last one we've done, we are now looking at a nickel deposit that's been found in the gas hills, and they've identified that the nickel oxide is there, and trying to map that out. And when you talk to the company that's doing this, they attribute that really to the USGS's effort in this mapping process.
Representative Sherwood.
Mr. Chairman, I also remind folks, I know our inboxes get flooded, but there was an email that came out from this agency this week with the data from their last aerial survey. It's very detailed, it's very interesting, but what is exciting about that, as soon as that comes out, the agency is getting calls from industry who are interested in further exploration of our mineral resources. So it is generating a lot of economic development activity for the state. Thank you.
Is there further discussion on Section 42 Geological Survey? Seeing none, we will close Section 42 and take a quick privilege of the floor. Mr. Majority Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Chairman, privilege of the floor. Thank you. So, folks, I don't know if you've seen, there are these blue ribbons that were placed on your desks. These are to honor Sergeant Krinke, obviously, who was killed in the line of duty in Sheridan as a memorandum. So, we'd certainly encourage you to do that to honor him. And if you need more, just feel free to come find me or some of the staff, and we can get you some. So thank you very much.
With that, we are moving to Section 44 Insurance Department. Please welcome back for her 4th consecutive appearance, Representative Sherwood.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for having me. I move Agency 44, found on page 18 of your summary sheet and page 32 of your budget bill. This agency generates $50 million annually to the general fund through fees and taxes paid by insurance companies which are licensed in the state. They had 4 exception requests this year. Each was recommended by our chief executive and adopted by JAC. So their priority number 1 was to bring the vacant financial examiner positions at or near market rate so that they can attract a qualified candidate. This position is needed to comply with Section 310 of the Wyoming's Insurance Code, and it monitors the solvency of our Wyoming insurance company. So we do want a qualified candidate in that position. Their priority number 2 moves the health program manager's salary and benefits from general funds to special revenue, yet again saving general fund monies. This position was created in last year's Senate File 151, and it's a regulation of pharmacy benefit managers. Their priority number 3 was to comply with the ETS Technology Replacement Program schedule. And priority number 4 was also for ETS fees to maintain their database. And unless there are any questions, this concludes Agency 44.
Any questions on Section 44 Insurance Department? Seeing none, we're going to close Section 44, move on to Department 45, Transportation. Representative Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I bring Section 45, Department of Transportation. Please refer to page 19 on your summary sheet and page 33 of your bill. Mr. Chairman, JAC adopted Governor's recommendation of $35,900 of highway fund dollars relating to technical correction for computer cost replacement. This refers to notes 1 through 7, 10, 16, and 18 on page 19 of your summary sheet. JAC added footnote 1, page 33 of your bill, to provide authorization for the agency to expend up to $523,277 of highway fund for the Capital Security Personnel Contract. Adopted governor's recommendation of $2,674,815 of the same fund type, highway fund, of which $2,373,385 is one-time for mobile data terminals and all related peripherals. JAC adopted governor's recommendation of $614,324 for dispatch center phone system maintenance. They adopted governor's recommendation of $192,409 one-time for crash team 3D scanner units. JAC adopted the governor's recommendation of $478,770 for night vision devices. Also adopted governor's recommendation of $123,025 one-time for ballistic helmets with face shields. The JAC adopted governor's recommendation of $400,000 for ETS telecommunication services. Finally, JAC adopted governor's recommendation of $4,107,263 of S4 funds, that's local government capital construction account, to reduce the local government capital construction account Fund S4 standard budget. Are there any questions?
Questions on section 45? Representative Pendergraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just hopefully a very quick question. The first several notes talk about a technical correction to the governor's request. Could you very briefly just explain, looks like maybe they're all related to the same sort of error?
Representative Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the question. Yes, those are all related to correction of computer cost replacements.
Other questions? Representative Conrad.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question to the bringer. What's the status of WildLink now? I see we're appropriating more money there. Are we complete, or will that process or project continue on? And would just, what's the end point of that?
Representative Henderson.
Mr. Chairman, I'm having trouble hearing the question.
Representative Conrad, repeat, please.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, thank you. My question surrounds WildLink. Are we still trying to move that forward throughout the state, and that's where the expenditure comes from?
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, it's still ongoing. You know, a couple of years ago, we put together a bill that involves the UW and the agency, and they're developing the new system. It's still in progress.
Further discussion on section 45, Department of Transportation. Representative Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To further answer the question about the technical corrections, the agency was given the wrong information from Agency 77 by accident as to what their TRP costs would be. And so they built into their budget a slightly lesser amount because they, for example, had $200 for a computer and it should have been $300. And don't quote the number, but I use that as my analogy. And so we simply corrected the number to be the same number as all other agencies within the enterprise, we in JAC. And so that's the technical nature of that. It's using the same number that was inadvertently passed on to this department, and so we corrected that.
And again, 77 is Enterprise Technology Services.
And as to the question on WildLink, we continue to maintain, upgrade, and build out WildLink throughout the state of Wyoming. And that's an ongoing project that benefits all of our communities.
Representative Haroldson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a real quick question on the line 13, $478,770 one time for night vision devices. I just was wondering what that was, what night vision devices and what are they going to be used for?
Representative Henderson.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, these devices are used obviously at night, but they're related to the department's need for these pieces of equipment to support the folks out when they're in the evening and they're doing their job. And so it's important that these devices are up to date and current. And so this was a request for that purpose.
Chairman. Nope. Representative Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Additionally, they'll be used to locate both suspects as well as missing persons after dark with the thermal features of night vision and whatnot. the department has them, they need upgraded every so often, and so this is part of their upgrades as they continue to do that on a regular basis.
Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to go along with that, I was wondering, 123,000 for ballistic helmets is to YDOT?
Representative Henderson.
Yes, again, it's related to upgrading their equipment, making sure they have the equipment that they need.
Vice Chairman Larson.
We want to remember that the Highway Patrol is in YDOT. Okay.
With that, any closing comments, Representative Henderson?
That concludes Agency 45. Thank you.
Any further questions on Section 45, Department of Transportation? Seeing none, we will close Section 45 and move on to Section 48, the Wyoming Department of Health. Vice Chairman Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the House, it's kind of difficult to follow Representative Sherwood. She's up here and jumping up and down and always smiling, and sets a high bar. But I will try to follow. So I'd like everybody, if you would, please, eyes this way. I want to prove that I can smile too. Okay, and so, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to start on Section 48, Department of Health, which is found on pages 20 and 21 of your status report and pages 34 through 38 of your budget bill. In his opening comments on the budget bill, good Chairman Nicholas noted that there's a lot going on in the Department of Health funding-wise this year, and it's not that the department is growing, but there's some fundamental organizational things that we have been predicting. I've been presenting to you over the last 4 years that there will come a time when those step 2 and step 3 cuts that we put into place then come back unfunded with one-time dollars, with ARPA dollars, with CARES Act dollars, with reversions, are going to have to be put back into the standard budget. And here we are. And so a lot of this activity in the Department of Health is recalibrating back to what we had been in 2018, 2019, and putting these positions and services, these programs back into the standard budget. So it's to kind of help you understand that, I just want to give you a little overview of the agency, and then as I go into the summary page and the budget bill, hopefully this will make a little more sense. Historically, the agency's budget has been about 30% of the state's general fund budget. The Department of Health's biennial request in this budget is $2.2 billion with a B, which includes $991 million general funds, $1 billion with a B authorization for federal funds, $227 million in other funds. That's things like the tobacco trust, agency trust accounts, and special revenue, which comes from grants and federal programs like CHIP or Medicaid medical assistant programs. It's important to note, as we have this conversation on Department of Health, that the department's one of the state's largest economic drivers, with approximately 87% of that $2.2 billion going out to businesses around the state that provide health care services to the citizens of the state. The remaining 13% covers administration costs for the department, which include 5 state facilities: the State Hospital in Evanston, the Veterans Home in Buffalo, the Life Resource Center in Lander, the Pioneer Home in Thermopolis, and the Retirement Center in Basin, each contributing significantly to the economies of those respective communities. This year's exception requests fall into 4 categories. State cuts, kind of as I referred to earlier. These are requests that seek to restore to the standard budget those programs whose previous 2020 cuts were temporarily funded one time with reversions, CARES Act, and ARPA dollars. We've been funding these programs with one-time funds for the last couple of years, knowing they'd have to be put back in to this standard budget, into a standard budget, in order to maintain that level of services. Now, please, it's important to note that as we talk about putting these cuts back into the agency's budget, there is $116,570,995 dollars of step 2 reductions that have not been put back in the standard budget. These are cuts that are staying in place from that 2020 budget reduction. Then the second area that you see in reception requests are mandatory requests. Each year, the department is compelled to request increases in federal and state programs such as the ECAs for the DD preschools, or fund increases in the Medicaid buy-in premiums. Last year, we funded these with one-time dollars, and now we need to put them back in the standard budget. We'll make note of that. They're going to be ongoing obligations that don't go away. When I talk about the Medicare buy-in and the Medicare clawback for Part D on the pharmacy side, we have citizens in the state who get to my age, they qualify for Medicare, but have been, for a variety of reasons, been eligible for Medicaid services. And so as they get to the age where they can be enrolled in Medicare, where the level of services is better, we do that. We move them to Medicare. But because there's a higher rate of service, Medicare requires the state to pay for those premiums. It's an enormous savings to the state, but the cost for those premiums are significant. Likewise, for those same individuals, when they get the Part D prescription benefit, at the end of each year, Medicare determines which of those came from this dual enrolled or those who are on Medicare but qualified for Medicaid and are getting that Part D prescription, and they claw back the premiums from us on our general funds for those premiums. And it's not an insignificant amount, but again, saves the state a significant amount of money. The third area is that we maintain funding in recent legislative decisions. Last year, we passed legislation and bills in the supplemental budget to adjust and start funding such things as the 988 Lifeline. And remember, and I think it was brought up in some conversation yesterday, that we put that in the Department of Health's budget. We're currently funding it through the budget. The Department of Health had some ARPA and reversion funds that would carry it through this existing biennium and into the first year of the biennium of this budget. But we're going to have to adjust it in the budget for the second half and ongoing, that it would be taken care of through the general funds. The other thing we done is we started reimbursing, or we adjusted the long-term care providers for their allowable costs for those patients, those residents that they have who are on Medicaid. We again funded that with one-time dollars last year, and we actually done it partly with reversions and part with general funds, a new appropriation last year, just so we could take advantage of the one-time dollars, knowing that we'd have to swap them back into the standard budget this year. These first three categories make up 85% of the agency's exception requests, okay? Then the additional requests, which would perhaps be the more traditional requests that you would see in an agency, amount to about $5.3 million, 1.9 being for IT system upgrades, and where the feds match 75 to 90% of the total cost. The remaining $3 million are upgrades to the 988 Lifeline to support texting and chat, and increased costs in the public health laboratory for contract services. So those are kind of the categories that you'll see these exception requests that we talk about today in the Department of Health. So take your 5-hour energy and off we go. Mr. Chairman, we'll start in the director's office, and the JAC adopted Governor's Rec on notes 1, 2, and 3 on the summary sheet. Note 1 of the summary sheet is for computer replacement in the director's office, and the JAC had to, or needed to add a footnote on this because in their agency budget request, it was noted as an ongoing cost where the computer cost should only be one time, and so we adjusted in that footnote. And I might, just for a point of clarification, sometimes if you guys would look at note 2 on the summary sheet and you come to the far right of that, it says budget request page 70. And as you get looking for that, that's in the agency's budget, not in the budget bill or on the summary sheet. That's a reference to the agency's individual budget. We had a conversation about that yesterday, and we kind of get used to how it flows, but there's a lot of parts to this conversation that is helpful if you know where to find all the information. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll go into healthcare financing. Healthcare financing is the division of the Department of Health where Medicaid is housed. And note 4 of the summary sheet refers to footnote 2, found on page 35 of the budget bill, which defines what our state Social Security benefit guidelines are so that we can be in compliance with the federal Social Security guidelines, and we're required to do that by state statute. Governor or JAC adopted the governor's recs in notes 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, which are all IT systems upgrades that fall into the additional requests that I referred to earlier. And on most of these, on these IT systems, the federal government in Medicaid takes care of about 75% of the match and 90% in others. JAC also added footnote 3 found on page 35 of the budget bill, changing the requested funds again for one time rather than ongoing. Note 12 increases the contract to the vendor that operates the call centers, directing questions from providers to Medicaid staff. The current wait time online, so if you work at a healthcare clinic or at a hospital and you have a question on perhaps Medicaid, a billing problem or an authorization problem, you call Medicaid. The current wait time is 7 to 10 minutes, which is too long, and this adjustment to the contract with that provider will ensure that the wait time is less than a minute. We adopt governor's rec in note 13 of the summary sheet, which adjusts the general funds for the CHIP, the Child Health Insurance Program, now that CMS has reduced their reimbursement rate from 88%, which was an increase during the COVID period, back to 65% where it has historically been. Notes 14 and 15 on the summary sheet are a couple of mandatory requests. This is where I was talking about on the Medicare Part D pharmacy clawback and the dual eligible, the Medicare enrollment. These have to be paid and need to be in the standard budget, which is why JAC adopted the governor's rec for the buy-in premiums on note 15, but then denied the governor's rec on note 14, where the recommendation would have been paying for the enrollment costs and with one-time reversions. JAC put that in the standard budget because they need to be ongoing. Last year, we passed House Bill 4, extending Medicaid postpartum for the time for postpartum coverage for eligible pregnant women with legislation that required the funding to be included in this standard budget. The agency inadvertently left that out, so in note 16 of the summary sheet, the coverage is included along with footnote 4 found on page 36 of the bill, giving the details of that. JAC adopted governor's recs on notes 17, 18, 20, and 21, which are restoring the cuts that have been sustained with one-time funds, which was the other category that we talked about. We adopted governor's recs on note 19 of the summary sheet. You may recall last year we decided to rebase long-term care providers So they are able to bill for 100% of the allowable cost for Medicaid residents. This doesn't mean that they get 100% reimbursement for all their costs, just those that are allowed by CMS. In doing so, we funded part with one-time reversions and the rest with general funds and federal funds. This action adds the standard budget that amount that we funded one time. JAC denied the governor's rec on note 22 of the summary sheet and granted the agency's request. These services were a step 2 reduction that we've been funding with one-time funds. Give you a little detail on that is these are therapy type services, so physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy that allows them to be habilitative. So if you have somebody that maybe has a physical disability or that might be part of on the waivers, that ongoing occupational therapy keeps them, perhaps their swallowing reflexes in place to take that program out. Those services are still available through Medicaid, but only as rehabilitative. So they have to digress in their health in order to qualify and be restored, and then they lose the services. And so this maintains the habilitative component of that. So, Mr. Chairman, that ends the Public Health Division, and would like to move along to the Public Health Division. The Joint Appropriations Committee adopted all the governor's recs related to the Public Health Division, which are shown in notes 23 through 29 on the summary sheet. On note 26, the JAC added footnote 5, found on page 36 of the budget bill, which addresses the public health nurses who are employees of a county but are funded by the state. These nurses didn't benefit from the compensation package. We had a bill on that we've passed through that corrects this moving forward, but this footnote takes care of it for this biennium. That's House Bill 74 that treats them correctly moving forward. On note 29 of the summary sheet, the committee added footnote 6, making the use of tobacco trust funds effective immediately. This is important because if there's at the end of the biennium, if there's tobacco trust funds left over, they automatically trip over into the corpus of that account and we can't use them. They become inviolate. So we try to use those and get them out to the services, and we do this in a couple of places. That concludes public health. I'd like to move into the behavioral health division. This division has 15 notes on the summary sheet. Number 30, number 44, number 30 through 44, and then the JAC adopted all the governor's recs except for note 42 and 43. When the governor starts developing his budget in August, he puts a number as a placeholder for the DD preschool enrollment. Then when the correct enrollment is determined on December 1st, we make a correction during the budget hearings. The enrollment number went down this year, so note 42 notes that JAC denied governor's rec. And then on note 43, JAC reduces the governor's one-time general fund ECA to the DD preschools from $12 million one time to zero. And then we add back in 12 million for an ECA and we take it from the school foundation program and add footnote 12 on page 37 of the bill, where the ECA is intended to be ongoing and will be adjusted dollar for dollar if Senate File 19 passes with an appropriation. That kind of addresses the same animal. I think the chairman of education will be explaining that when it comes across. Notes 30 and 35 focus on the 988 hotline, which I alluded to a little bit earlier, with a footnote that's related where we used ARPA dollars to cover, there's enough ARPA dollars to cover for the first year in this biennium, but the second year needs to be out of general funds. And in footnote 7, found on page 36, a position is moved from public health to this division as the 988 program manager, and the funds for her position and for that position won't be in effect until 2025 because of the funding that we talked about. And footnote 10 on page 37 of the bill has that second half of the biennium funding being biennialized and carried forward in the next biennium. Notes 32, 33, and 44 each have footnotes, which are footnotes found, number 8 and number 9 found on page 37 of your budget bill, and footnote 13 found on page 38 of the budget bill. Each of these are changing funding again and they're on computer replacements from ongoing to one time. And then I'd like to bring your attention to notes 36, 38, 40, and 41, which are good examples of programs that were step 3 reductions for mental health services that we've been funding one time and are now putting back into the standard budget. Those are inpatient and outpatient services, both for mental health and for substance abuse. In the Department of Aging, JAC adopted Governor's Rec for note 45 on the summary sheet. And in note 46 of the summary sheet, JAC added $200,000 general funds for grants to senior centers and added footnote 14 found on page 38 of the bill. This is money going to the Wyoming Senior Services Board and is part of the $38.5 million general fund shown on page 34, line 21 of the bill. So happy to try and answer any questions that I didn't address earlier.
Chairman Washut.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On item number 34, the increase looks like at least the governor's request for $3 million for Title 25. Is that a change or is it increase, decrease? Is there a change in the role? Just a little more information on that Title 25 issue.
Thank you. So,
you're welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I appreciate the question because that certainly does warrant a review. You'll recall during the construction of the state hospital, we and prior to that, the redesign of the mission of the state hospital and the Life Resource Center, there were a number of beds of the state hospital that were being used and for people who had that were more of a long-term care patient, and we were sending more individuals to designated hospitals to cover those Title 25 costs. We've seen a spike go up. I think in 2016, maybe 2017, we had to appropriate $25 million extra dollars to cover those out of state agency Title 25 costs. As we've got the state hospital now functioning and working forward, there with the COVID issue, we had staffing problems and still weren't able to take all the Title 25 patients. Still had those Title 25 individuals being placed in emergency rooms and in designated hospitals, and so we had to fund them in the last biennium as well with some extra dollars. The request this year is down a fair amount, but is still there in case we're not able to take care of all the Title 25 needs that we have to. And in the presentation with the agency, they, if this is not sufficient, they have flexibility that you'll see in a Section 300 to use some of the reversions for Title 25, and then we have the ability to come back in the supplemental budget to adjust it accordingly. I hope that answers the question.
Representative Pendergraft.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This should be an easy one. Number 43, we moved funding 12 million from the general fund, started taking it now as I see it out of S5. Can you assure me, as is my understanding, that that does not change the authority? In other words, we're not taking the CDCs out of the Department of Health and moving them to the Department of Education. Is that correct?
Vice Chairman Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and your assumption is correct, but I would elaborate, if I may, just a little on the rationale for moving it from general fund to school foundation. This is part of the IDEA Part B funding for kids that have IEPs or that have developmental delays that we're trying to get ready to go into the K-12 model. Part B covers kids age 5 through 21, and so this is as they go from the DD preschools. It can also go covers those kids with IEPs in K-12. JEC felt that this really is an educational expense, and Wyoming's the only one that does it this way. We put these DD preschools into the Department of Health, which we do, and then historically have required general funds to fund that operation. And we felt that we should shift that from a general fund obligation more to school foundation obligation. But the responsibility stays in the Department of Health. Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Representative Vice Chairman Larson.
So Part B starts at age 3 up through 21. Thank you for that.
Representative Lawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just had would like you to go over some numbers I missed. You talked about the 2020 cuts and the number that were being restored and the ones that were not. Can you just give me those big two numbers again?
Vice Chairman Larson, if you'd repeat those for the floor, if you could.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I can. Those cuts that were made in 2021 that are not being restored is $116,570,995. And that includes all funding sources. 89 million general fund, 30 million federal funds, 500,000 other funds. Then for the state cuts that we're putting back in, that number is 66.8 million that we're putting back in. 43.7 of that general fund, 23 million federal, and no other funds.
Thank you.
Representative Penn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could just get a little clarification, there was a mention of, I can't remember if it was line 37, but a mention of funding that if Senate File 19 passes, then we've got it covered. Could you just give me some more explanation on what that was? And thank you.
Sure, Vice Chairman Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So that's on our DD preschool, ECA. And there were two kind of parallel approaches coming at it this year. There was a recommendation in the Department of Health's budget that the governor had a request of $12 million general fund one time, and it addressed the historic ECAs that had not been funded ongoing. And I will give you just a little note on that is when we do a K-12 ECA, the following year, the Department of Health is required to make a similar ECA for the DD preschools. The ECA used for the K-12 model uses 4 indices, professional, non-professional, curriculum, and energy that they use to develop that ECA. When the Department of Health uses to get their number, they just use supplies and curriculum for that. It was the highest one. And so they made that in this budget for 12 million. We changed it to funding, again, ongoing, 12 million from school foundation programs and made it ongoing so that the ECA will be reflected moving forward. Now, Education Committee, couldn't remember what you were called, the Education Committee has been looking at the same issue on the funding for the DD preschools. And they've come back with the recommendation that the ECA adjustment should reflect more a higher per child amount. The ECA that we're recommending here really represents about $10,500 per child per year. The ECA being proposed in the Department of Education, I believe, is $12,300. And then there's another component of that in that they changed the reporting date, which is currently December 1st, back to May 1st. And that May 1st adds additional numbers. Now, if we adjusted this model, the one that we have in the budget, and adjusted the date back to May 1st, it would require an additional $663,000 if memory serves me correct. So those are kind of the moving pieces. So we've got this appropriated. If their bill come through and passed with that increased number, whatever that is, this would be reduced by that much, so that we're not funding instead of 12 million and 25 million, 37 million.
Follow-up, President Penn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you remind me which line that is in? And then, so if the bill doesn't pass, and I have Senate file, you said Senate file 19, but I thought when I looked it up, that one was on car seats. Is that the right bill? Thank you.
So I heard the first part, and I might have to have you repeat the second one again. And I'm looking for it in my sheet.
Just reminding on what the bill line and what bill number we're referencing, and to ensure that's the correct bill number.
Got it. Yeah, okay, there we go. So it will be found on note 43 of the summary sheet, and you will see it on footnote 12 of the budget bill, and it's Senate File 19, the Education Committee bill.
Thank you.
Chairman Washut, welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two quick things. I just need an assurance that the treatment court funding that used to be in Department of Health has actually been removed. I think maybe we did that during the supplemental last year, but just want to make sure that the money actually did leave and get transferred over to the judicial branch. And then you mentioned a 988 program manager. Is that someone, that's a position in addition to the call takers? I just don't know why we would need a program manager, so a little more explanation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your first comment on the drug court, as we move that to the judicial system, we zeroed that out, and that has been done. The program manager is a position that was in public health, is an existing position, and they moved it over. They weren't quite sure what the administrative requirements were going to be for the 988 hotline, and so they've moved this position to help administrate because they're, if you'll, what note was that again, Chairman Washut? And I can talk to you, but we can look at the note in their budget.
I'm trying to find it. It was when you, on the 988 hotline itself, you mentioned that the program manager, I didn't see it listed specifically. It was in your comments when you were talking about the 988 system.
Did you find that, Vice Chairman Larson?
I did.
Okay.
And it's moving that position over. It moves that position over, and I guess my take from your question, Chairman, is that is there a need to have someone in the agencies, and what we're hearing from the agency is, yes, there's more administrative requirements to administer that hotline and do the data and make sure the data is being filed and correctly stored. And combined, we have two 988 hotline system. I believe one is in Casper, the other is in Basin. If I'm remembering correctly, they correlate that information, correlate efforts to make sure that the contract's being filled and being done. I don't think that's all this individual does, but they're moving that and having that the primary focus.
Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to ask you to reiterate, Representative, what was the information about the county nurses, and where can I find that again, please?
Public, it's in, thank you,
Go ahead,
Mr.
Vice
Chairman.
Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's line 26 of the summary sheet, and it's footnote 5 in your budget bill. And as we've heard that conversation for House Bill, I'm getting there. House Bill 74 is that you'll recall that in public health, we have some of those that are funded fully by the counties and some that are kind of a combination of both, and then some that take it all on. Those that are a combination of both didn't get the pay increases that the rest of their counterparts did in state government. And so we correct that and make sure that that moving forward, that they would be, wouldn't be overlooked. I think that might be the fairer way to say that, is it wasn't intentional, we just didn't have the process in place to do it.
Follow-up, Representative Ottman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, could you please tell me, are all of those 23 county positions filled? And if not, is that a budget item anyway? Thank you.
Vice Chairman Larson, if you know.
And I do not have all that detail. I think that there's, I want to say 4 counties, does that sound right, or 5 counties that are outside solely on their own. That leaves 18 if my Lander math's close that are otherwise, but I don't have the actual budget for that.
Is there other discussion on the Department of Health? Double checking, section 48. We will close, and Mr. Majority Floor Leader, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one quick question on, let's see, line 16 or item 16. I see we're doing some money here for the extended postpartum coverage. Could we get a number of how many people are actually involved in the program right now and how many recipients that are? I understand there was some discussion about that and some information about what's currently in the program.
Still in section 48, go ahead, Representative Larson.
Mr. Chairman, I can. I don't have that at my fingertips, but I'll make that request from the department and from the Healthcare Financing Division to make sure that we have it ASAP. I think that that's available. And I'm sure, Mr. Chairman, that they have some historic data going back because that's been in place for some period of time. And I want to say that prior to our action last year, that the eligibility or the coverage lasted for 60 days or 90 days, and then we've extended it to a year, right? Yep, got it.
All right.
If they're listening, they can start getting that.
48 is closed, going to section 49. Vice Chairman Larson, Department of Family Services, floor is yours.
Time out. Will I take a drink? Thank you. And thanks for the questions. Mr. Chairman, Department of Family Services, Agency 49 can be found on page 22 and 23 of the summary sheet and pages 38 through 41 of the budget bill. There's a couple of things on this agency that I'd like to note, because I think of the legislative body, we really ought to be proud of the work the agency is doing. In the last 6 years, we funded 2 large technology systems in the agency, the first being EPICS, which is the eligibility system for federal programs like SNAP and TANF, and the second is WyoSafe, which replaces the YCAP system for case management for children who come under protective services and care of the agency. Both have been innovative, nearing completion, and within their budgets. And these budgets, I think if you take the 2 of them together, you're over $30 million, and the federal matching funds was huge on this as well. And for the 10th straight year, the Wyoming Department of Family Services is the top performing child support program in the nation. I think the agency does well. There are 2 institutions in this agency, the boys' school in Worland and the girls' school in Gillette. Notes 1 and 2 in the summary sheet change the funding for education, similar to what we did in the DD preschools, at the boys' school and the girls' school, from general funds to the school foundation dollars. And then we add footnote 1 found on page 39 of your budget bill, requiring this change to be included in their biennial budget request. JAC adopted governor's recs on notes 3 through 8. Note 3 provided 3 new FTEs at the boys' school. Currently, there are 9 staff to provide oversight at 3 dormitories, and as such, there are 3 to 4 nights a week where there's only 1 staff in each dorm. There needs to be at least 2 for safety. If there's an issue, they need to take somebody out, then the dorm isn't left with any supervision. It's been a bit of a concern. The rest of the notes are accounting revisions, including source of funding for certain activities. In the Assistance and Services division of the agency, notes 9 through 31 on the summary sheet, and pages 22 and 23, notes 9 through 31 on pages 22 and 23 of the summary sheet pertain to the Assistance and Services unit. Notes 9, 10, 18, 19, 23, and 31 all have footnotes. JAC adopted and are in the budget bill. Footnote 2, found on 39 of the budget bill, is a footnote that is included each year, noting residential bed capacity requirements are based upon the capacity that existed at the beginning of the previous biennium. What that means, and we have a similar bed capacity agreement or in statute for hospitals that or for long-term care, that that a new long-term care facility can't be built if bed capacity, I think, is over 83 or 85%. We had the same requirement for hospitals. That was removed maybe back in the 80s. And this requirement is not in statute, but has been an agency rule and has been included in the budget bill for a number of years. Footnote number 3 is similar to the last couple of years, providing, and we've done this, is $60,000 one-time funds to help the indigent burial program. And these funds are available to families who are qualified and using the SNAP program to help cover a deceased family member's burial costs. Please remember that there's 2 indigent burial programs. This and to qualify for this, the family has to be participating in the SNAP program, and then we funded another indigent burial program for counties to help the counties cover some of those costs. That's not this one, though. Footnote 4, found on page 40 of the budget bill, is acknowledging the legislative intent from 2022 session law required $100,000 be ongoing for the system maintenance of the juvenile justice data reporting system. This request was inadvertently lent out of the agency's budget request, which, and this footnote corrects that mistake. Note 19 on the summary sheet doesn't have an associated footnote, but the JAC adopted a technical correction in Unit 5908, the Children's Trust Fund. The agency proposed a reclassification of an administrative position in the trust, which the governor approved conditionally pending the approval of HRD, the NANI, HRD Human Resource Division, recommended a lower classification than was requested, and the technical correction is the difference in the compensation funding of the approved classification versus the requested classification. Footnote 5 is regarding the funding of an effort to gather early education data referred to as eKids that has been funded through a grant administered through this agency. In this grant, there was a contract let for an entity to gather preschool data to help us better understand what needs we might have around the state to address early education, I guess is the right way, or not to address early education. I think those are the questions we're trying to answer. The agency's intent is to continue this effort with general, but this was done through a grant. The grant ran out. The agency's intent is to finish this effort through this biennium. And then we put a footnote in there, footnote 5, which then is requiring that this data be transferred over to the Community College Commission so that it can be included in their statewide longitudinal educational data system we refer to as SLEDS by June of 26th. We initially had a footnote that really put the funding to SLEDS and had them gather it. They informed us, the Community College Commission and Department of Family Services informed us that SLEDS didn't have the capacity to do that, so hence we moved it back as I referred here. Footnote number 6 is for $200,000 for office and conference training room furnishings in the Emerson DFS building in Lander. This renovation project had planned on the FF&E furnishings, but as the project wound down, the agency and the state construction department diverted the funds that would have accomplished this to replace the boiler system that was nearing the end of life cycle. They kind of made that choice. They had moved, when they moved into the facility, they brought the furnishings that they had from the lease space, and then they've been doing a great job of going to garage sales. And true story, going to garage sales to furnish the rest until we get this done. We've made, because that was in the center part of the state, they anticipate doing a number of the trainings there for all agencies, and we needed to get the audio visual, the televisions and the tables and chairs for that. The cost estimate for this was developed by the state construction department. On notes 14, 28, and 29 reflect the results of rebasing for foster care, crisis beds, group home, and residential treatment centers, and BOCES facilities that have residential settings for adolescents or children that have behavioral challenges. JAC adopted the governor's rec, which funds each of these requests at 75% of the rebasing recommendation. It's worth noting on this conversation, you'll recall last year we had put a little bit of money into the PRTF system because it hadn't been rebased since, I think, 2012. When you have one of these children go into, this is our policy and this is how our system works. We don't have a state facility that takes care of the behavioral challenges of children. We enter into contracts with BOCES or regional treatment centers like we have in Gillette and up in the land where the camels live and up in the land of the Tetons and other areas. And the Department of Family Services has a responsibility to take care of the day-to-day costs, the room and board, if you will, and in services. Department of Education is responsible for taking care of the education component, and Department of Health is responsible for funding that individual's medical needs while in that facility. And so every 2 years, they do a rebasing to adjust the rates, rebasing rates for the costs that those facilities have. In 2016, when we done the first, what we thought was the end of the world budget cuts, Department of Family Service offered that rebasing expense up as a cut and had never been restored. So Department of Education, Department of Health have been doing every 2 years this rebasing, adjusting the cost for those facilities, but Department of Family Service had not done one. So there's a pretty significant increase, and it's really important to note that in this last rebasing study, they looked at what service each of these crisis bed services are different than group home beds, which is different than perhaps in what we see in BOCES, and it's adjusted accordingly. I would again note that the request is 75% of the rebasing recommendation. I think that conversation is worthy to continue during the supplemental budget to see if we can't get that up to where it needs to be, but similar to what we did with the DD providers, as much as we found just trying to make sure the limited amount of butter can get all the way across the bread. In note 20, moves funding for real-time employment verification for the SNAP applicants to general funds and federal funds. It had previously been funded through a grant. The agency attributes this real-time verification to Wyoming being one of only 3 states that did not get a letter of correction from the USDA for SNAP administration, which we would, perhaps in Lloyd's terms, determine to be fraud. They've been able to do that early verification, which oftentimes we try to do on the back end. We try to chase it down after we think that it's happened. This very quick real-time verifications that they qualify for these programs has been very successful. And because of it, they were one of only 3 states that didn't get a letter of correction. Note 25 reflects the conversion of 18 part-time employees to full-time employees. So in this year's budget, overall budget, we talked about 50 new full-time employees. We talked about 11 of them being in Department of Environmental Quality. There's 18 of the 50 in this budget. They're not new people. They were part-time employees that serve to help with case management of caseworkers, but they were only part-time positions. And the annual turnover rate's about 20%, 18 to 20%, because the part-time status being noted as the main reason for them leaving, making them the full-time positions. We feel will keep those, and they are important. These are the folks that help the case managers. They'll go get the children, take them to their doctor's appointment, make sure that they're getting to foster care, making sure that they're getting to their interviews where they need to be, and let the case managers, which have pretty significant loads anyway, deal with case management of the other kids that are in protective services. And finally, I'd just remind you that DFS files over 30,000 court pleadings a year. And when we raised the filing fees last year from $120 to $160, we had to adjust their standard budget to cover the increased costs that they would have in their court filings. Mr. Chairman, we'll take questions.
All right, Vice Chairman Knapp.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. To the good Vice Chair, on the residential treatment centers, you had mentioned we're at 75% now of the rate. And I'm just wondering, do you have a dollar figure for what would be funding 100% of that rate?
While you look that up, Chairman Larson, or Vice Chairman Larson, I'll take a question from Chairman Brown.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, if the good representative wouldn't mind me getting that for him, I have it. I need to find that, but I'll get that to you before lunch.
Okay, now Chairman Brown.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. It's actually very similar in nature to the good Vice Chairman's questions here. Really what it boils down to, and I understand the analogy that was used is taking a little bit of butter and spreading it as best we can. What concerns me the most about this, and I'm curious what the discussions looked like as you guys battled through this 75%, we have the money. right? We're stacking money inside the budget right now, and this is a time where we can have the capability of funding these rebases. And I can remember back in the 2017, 2018 era where we talked about doing these same rebasings and we didn't have the money. So I guess I'm just kind of curious what the discussion was inside the appropriations room with the director, and you know, the idea of putting it up to 100% doesn't seem like it's all that evil. Maybe a good thing to do and get us back to where these communities can handle these people the way that they need to.
Vice Chairman Larson.
Thank you. I don't think the motives were ever intended to be evil. And I think the executive branch and the appropriations approach to this is the 75% is in, so we say 75% of the rebasing, but the increase is significant over what they were getting, and it's one of 3 revenue sources that they get in this. So you've got the Department of Education, Department of Health, and so would it be nice to fund 100%? Sure. Now, to your point, we've got the money, do we? Okay, now, we left about 80 million on the table for this body to spend. We've spent that yesterday. Okay, so when you imply that we have the money, let's, you know, we fully, this committee in the conversation, partly adopted that because we thought that this body, if you want to raise it to that and we pull it out of the LSRA going forward, or however we do that, it is up to the body. But the intent is to try and leave some on the table for you guys and for these other conversations. So I think it's worthy of the conversation moving forward. But to definitively say we have the money, I would throw a question mark behind it, depending on the other actions that we've had thus far.
Madam Minority Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is for footnote 29. It says that JEC adopted the governor's recommendation, and this was for foster care providers. I'm wondering if we fulfilled what the agency's request was and what the discussion was around that specifically. Thank you.
Vice Chairman Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the foster care adjustment wasn't based, it was similar to what we done for group homes, BOCES and stuff, but theirs wasn't contingent upon a rebasing. It just had not been rebased for a period of time, and the governor adopted the agency's requested adjustment.
Other discussion or questions on Agency 49, the Department of Family Services?
No, not on these.
You do. Madam Minority Whip, welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just like to play microphone leapfrog. On number 3, it says that we added 3 full-time FTE positions for overnight staffing at the boys' school. I'm wondering if you have any specifics on any of that. I know that the agency had cut like mental health providers within the boys' school before my time here at the legislature. So I'm just curious if we have any mental health providers that are working in the boys and girls school, and if any of these positions help support that. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chairman Larson.
My understanding is that they do have contract mental health services being provided at the boys' school. These 3 positions really are more of a safety concern to make sure that we have the ability to have staffing in those dormitories at all time. As I mentioned, there's some probably 3 nights a week where we only have 1 person in each dorm. Makes us kind of nervous, and we want to make sure that we have those, and that's the rationale behind those 3.
Any further questions or discussion on Section 49, Department of Family Services? Seeing none, we will close Section 49 and have a motion from the Majority Floor Leader. Welcome, Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the Committee of the Whole begs leave to rise and to sit again at 1:45 p.m.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor? Please say aye. All those opposed say no. We'll be in recess until 1:45, right after committee announcements. And as those chairmen are making their way to the mic, friendly reminder that many of you are printing bills, but every bill has a hard copy in that desk drawer to the north gallery. So instead of printing out a bill, please go grab one of the 10 copies previously made. With that, Chairman Burkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your committee number 9 will meet Monday morning at 8 o'clock to consider, excuse me, House Bill 145 and House Joint Resolution 3.
Chairman Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Re-referrals to committee number 2, House Bill 29.
Chairman Washington, I'm not sure you can do a re-referral after we break. So just committee announcements, but I'll do, and I don't think you can do re-referrals while we're in committee of the whole.
Right.
So it might be a while today. Chairman Northrup.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your committee number 4, Education, will meet as soon as we get a bite to eat. Down in room 3, we're going to hear 2 bills, Wyoming Reads Day, which is House Bill 454, and House Bill 92, Protection of Parental Rights.
Chairman Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your House Appropriations will meet on Tuesday at 8 a.m. to hear House Bill 96, House Bill 144, House Bill 169, House Bill 186, and House Bill 75. So that
Chairman
means-
Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your House Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions Committee will meet at 12:20 in room E005 to consider 2 bills, House Bill 79, Secretary of State Expedited Filings, and House Bill 81, Public Officer Training Amendments.
Chairman Harshman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your committee number 3, Revenue, will meet in 15 minutes at 12:15, and we're going to be on the west side of Capitol Extension, room number 6. Mr. Chairman, it's 4 bills. House Bill 133, Property Tax Holiday, House Bill 52, Homestead Exemption, House Bill 103, Assessment Ratio for Residential Property, and House Bill 203, Property Tax Reduction and Replacement Act. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, we will be in recess until 1:45. Back in the chamber, 1:45.